Welcome to the D-Minus Diaries, Episode 15 by Jim Jones, For What It's Worth. Part 3, Wages, Work, and the Donut Line. We hope you enjoy this podcast while you drive, ride, roam, or drone. If you like what you hear, please like the heart button, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Welcome back. In Part 1, we walked from a 15-cent donut to a tap-to-pay world and watched housing, technology, and taxes quietly bend the rules in ways your wallet still feels. In Part 2, we followed AI, debt, and dynamic pricing into Jim's donut shop and watched the same donut cost Bob, Susie, and Larry 3 very different amounts. In this episode, we are going to talk about something I left mostly off-stage: wages, the money on the other side of the counter. Because prices did not just jump on their own, labor costs, benefit rules, and minimum wage hikes all marched into Jim's kitchen and stood between you and your donut. Back in the years leading up to all this, a number started bouncing around the news: what an hour of basic work should pay. I remember TV segments talking about warehouse and retail workers held just under full-time hours to avoid benefits, and commentators arguing that the floor needed to move up. Whether the talking head said $14 or $15 an hour, the idea stuck. The promise was simple: raise the minimum, and working people would finally be able to breathe. The reality, as we are about to see inside Jim's donut shop, turned out to be more complicated. Last year, Jim paid his entry-level workers $10 an hour for 36 hours a week, keeping them just under full-time in his state to avoid triggering a more expensive benefits package. The kids behind the counter still qualified for some government assistance, and Jim could just barely keep his prices low enough that Bob did not complain. Then the state raised its minimum wage to $14 an hour and tightened rules around part-time status. Suddenly, that same worker at Jim's had to be paid more per hour, and once scheduled near 40 hours a week, they crossed into full-time, which meant payroll taxes, health insurance contributions, and other benefits kicked in at higher levels. Jim did not become greedy overnight. The math changed. For years, a lot of big employers played the same game: hold workers at 30 to 36 hours a week so schedules stayed full but benefit costs stayed low. When public pressure and policy shifts pushed more jobs back toward real full-time with benefits, the total compensation per worker went up, even if the posted wage only moved a few dollars. That sounds like a win for workers, and in some ways it is: steadier income, benefits, a path to stability. But look at it from Jim's side. Every time a worker crosses that full-time line, his total cost per hour jumps, and the difference does not come out of thin air. It lands in the price of coffee, donuts, and the quiet disappearance of that extra kid who used to help after school. There is another uncomfortable angle. If you can work full-time at or near minimum wage and still qualify for government assistance, the minimum is not really a ladder, it is a trap door. The floor is just high enough to disqualify you from some programs when you get a raise, but not high enough to fund a real step up, especially once you factor in higher taxes and lost benefits. In a free market, the theory is simple. An employer and an employee sit across the table and agree on what a job is worth. Minimum wage laws short-circuit that conversation. Employers know they never have to bid above the legal floor to fill low-skill roles, and some workers learn to treat that floor as a destination instead of a starting point. The message becomes, this is what you are worth, even when their potential is much higher. Jim puts out a now hiring sign and 2 people applies. Worker A is 16, no degree, willing to start at the new $14 minimum, wash dishes, mop floors, and learn the business. They work after school and on weekends, watching how the shop runs. By the time worker A is 20, they have become a supervisor or manager, handling schedules, training, and opening and closing the store. Worker A is now making more than $20 an hour and receiving bonuses. Also, Jim can take time off because worker A is trusted and shows leadership and has become a valuable employee to Jim. Worker B has a 2-year hospitality degree and no work experience. The school told her she is worth $20 an hour out of the gate. Jim does the math. If he hires worker B at $20 plus payroll taxes and benefits, that cost has to show up in prices. That means more expensive donuts and coffee in a town where Bob is already grumbling. If he hires worker A at 14, he gets someone he can train, grow, and promote from within, but worker A may still struggle to get ahead if every raised dollar is eaten by taxes, lost benefits, and higher rent. Nobody in this story is evil. They are all just responding to a system that tells workers their value comes from degrees and that tells small businesses to stretch workers thin and automate everything they can. Blue-collar work used to follow a clearer path. Back when I was a youngster working a construction job, you came in as a laborer, swept floors, hauled lumber, and learned by watching. Over time, if you showed up, listened, and became useful, you moved to apprentice, then journeyman, then master. The paycheck grew with your skills. Somewhere along the way, the story changed. Vocational and college programs started selling a different dream: get the credential first, skip the grunt work, and walk in the door worth a high wage from day one. Employers started meeting graduates who demanded wages higher than the business owner took home, backed by a diploma but no real-world track record, and student loans ticking like a meter in the background. 2 years in the classroom that could have been 2 years of paid learning on the job. Here is where technology walks back into the donut shop. When the cost of a human hour goes up, the calculator starts whispering, "Can a machine do this instead?" Every time the wage floor jumps, every time a new rule adds cost to each hour of labor, the math for automation looks a little better. At Jim's donut shop, that shows up as tablets at the counter, self-service kiosks, online ordering, and a back-office system that helps set schedules and prices. Jim is not anti-human. He is trying to survive. Every hour a kiosk works without a break is an hour he does not have to pay someone $14 plus taxes and benefits. In Part 2, we talked about AI as a tool for dynamic pricing and surveillance at the register. Now the same logic is moving behind the scenes into scheduling, hiring, and wage decisions. Some large employers already use systems that scan local labor markets, cost of living data, and even personal data to calculate the smallest wage they can offer and still fill a position. Regulators and activists are starting to look at software that sets wages and hours, worried that algorithms will quietly build desperation wages into the system. But even if new rules come, the push is the same. Higher mandated wage floors and benefit costs drive companies to look for any technology that can keep profit margins intact without raising prices so high that customers revolt. So what happens to the characters you met in Part 2 when wages move? Bob is retired and on a fixed income. The higher minimum wage does not put more cash in his pocket, but it does flow into the cost of his donut, his utilities, and his property taxes, if the town raises rates to cover higher salaries. Susie gets a raise at the coffee shop where she works weekends. Her pay jumps from $10 to $14 an hour. Her paycheck is bigger, but so is the bite for payroll taxes, and a small bump in income threatens some of the assistance she was barely qualifying for. Larry works in a warehouse that quietly raised wages to compete for workers in a tight labor market, but his company is now rolling out more robots and automated systems to optimize operations. He keeps his job for now, but new hires are fewer, and the pressure to hit productivity targets goes up. All three buy the same donut at Jim's. Bob notices the price first. Susie feels the difference a few months later when her rent goes up and her benefits paperwork changes. Larry feels it when overtime shrinks and he is training the machine that might replace his hours. In Part 2, we watch Jim take a $2.32 donut, and after inflation, card fees, and rounding, turn it into $2.50 before tax. Now add the new wages. Last year, labor for that donut, which required someone to mix, fry, apply icing, clean, and serve, probably cost Jim about 40 cents once you spread wages across the whole batch. After the minimum wage jump and benefit changes, that same labor slice might cost 55 or 60 cents, even before you factor in training and turnover. Jim has options, but none of them are painless. He can raise the price again and risk losing customers like Bob. He can shrink the donut a little more and hope nobody notices. He can cut shifts and rely on apps, kiosks, and AI tools to fill the gap. In the end, he does some of each, prices inch up, donuts get slightly smaller. The after-school kid does not get hired this year because the tablet never calls in sick, and the scheduling software says the shop can optimize with fewer hours. Here is the twist that nobody puts on the campaign signs. Minimum wage laws are supposed to be a floor, but for many workers they become a ceiling. Employers know they can always fill low-skill roles at the legal minimum, so they have little incentive to negotiate higher pay based on individual performance, at least at the entry level. In a truly free market, a hard-working beginner might sit down with an owner like Jim and say, "I can do 3 jobs and save you money, pay me more than the standard rate," and Jim might agree if the math works. But when legal floors, tip credits, and benefit thresholds stack up, both sides end up negotiating with a rulebook instead of with each other. The law meant to protect the worker can quietly become the barrier that keeps them from getting ahead. So what do you do if you are the kid who used to sweep the floor at Jim's donut shop and now faces a higher wage floor, higher prices, and fewer starter jobs? The answer looks a lot like the old construction path. Start somewhere, anywhere, even at the minimum, but do not stay there. Learn the business. Make yourself indispensable. Ask to handle the early shift key. Learn how to close out the register. Volunteer to manage inventory. Each skill you add makes you worth more than the posted wage and gives you leverage to move to a better job, a different shop, or your own business. The credential might still help, but the market cares about one thing: value. If you can reliably make or save money for someone else, you have power, even in a world of AI, kiosks, and dynamic pricing. The modern economy is not just a story of greedy corporations or selfish politicians. It is a tug of war between 3 forces: workers who want a living wage and a future, employers who are trying to keep the lights on while the rules change, and machines and AI that become more attractive every time the cost of a human hour goes up. Minimum wage hikes, benefit mandates, and union drives shift that balance. Sometimes they deliver real gains to workers, sometimes they accelerate the push toward automation and cut off the bottom rungs of the ladder. Often they do both at the same time. Jim feels the pressure to do what the bigger chains do: keep posted wages as close to the legal minimum as possible and let tips make up the difference. He can see the numbers on the tablet and the payroll reports, and he knows he could slow raises or shave starting pay because the screen shows that workers make good money with tips, even if that income is irregular and depends on guilt-driven buttons. But Jim remembers starting out at a grocery store and earning tips. Those tips mattered when he was young, and he wants to keep that feeling alive for his own employees. He loves to see their faces when they get their share. They often thank him, and it has quietly become his best recruiting tool. Customers like knowing that their tip actually matters, that it goes to the people who handed them the donut and poured the coffee. The funny thing is, ever since the tips started flowing this way, Jim almost never gets last-minute sick calls or casual requests for time off. People want to be on the schedule because they know those extra dollars are real. Under Trump's new no tax on tips rules, at least some of those tip dollars at Jim's donut shop are shielded from federal income tax for the workers who report them, which makes that monthly tip sheet feel even more like real money instead of spare change. So Jim refuses to play games with base wages. The posted hourly rate is real, and the tips are truly extra. Once a month, he prints the report from the tablet, totals every dollar of tips, and divides them among his workers based on the hours they actually worked that month. The more hours you put in, the bigger your slice. It is his way of staying fair and transparent in a system that treats tips as a way to subsidize payroll, a small act of resistance in a world where everything else about the donut seems to be priced by a machine. Jim tries to be a good and fair employer, but he loses sleep because every outside force on his shop's economics comes with more than sticker shock. It comes with an unspoken "or else." If he cannot keep customers happy and prices low enough to feel fair, he knows the math will eventually force him to close the doors. Who loses? Everyone. Jim knows this is a balancing act. If his payroll and prices are not competitive, he will lose both customers and employees. The customer loses a great donut and a place to sit and talk in the morning. The employees lose their jobs and a starter rung on the ladder. The city and state lose tax revenue from sales, payroll, and income. The landlord is left with dead space and a vacancy that may sit empty for months. The vendors who supply flour, sugar, coffee, cups, and boxes lose a small but steady account. The bank loses a performing small business customer. When one little shop fails, the ripple runs far beyond the closed sign. Jim knows that if he cannot find the balance, the only responsible thing for him to do is to shut the doors before he drowns in debt and takes other people down with him. If the first two parts of this series showed how prices creep up on the consumer, this part is about realizing that your wage and your skills are part of the same equation. You cannot control state minimums, city rules, or national campaigns, but you can control whether your value rises faster than the floor beneath you. When you walk into Jim's donut shop tomorrow, look at the menu board and see both sides of the counter. The donut is more expensive because of inflation, technology, taxes, fees, and yes, wages. The question is whether your personal worth, the value you bring to the marketplace, has climbed faster than the price of that donut. If it has not, the minimum wage will not save you. Only your decisions, your skills, and your willingness to move up from minimum will. If you have ways to help people save money and win, share them. If this made sense to you, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Jim D. Jones.